I really find caregiver and client, what really makes it work, the relationship work, is the companionship.
Yep.
And nobody pays for companionship, right? No one's going to pay $35 an hour for companionship, but it truly is the glue of the relationship working.
You're listening to Home Care Hindsight, the podcast where we talk with home care leaders about the big mistakes they've made and the even bigger lessons they've learned along the way. I'm David Knack, head of sales here at Zingage, and I've built a career on the idea that we learn a whole lot more from our mistakes than from our successes, which is great because I've made a lot of mistakes. I've gotten to know some of the leaders in this industry who've built amazing businesses and are super well respected. So I thought it'd be fun, instead of asking them about the great things they've accomplished, to have them tell the story of one of the biggest mistakes that they've made and how that mistake changed their thinking and the way they run their business. All right, we are back with another episode of Home Care Hindsight, brought to you by Zingage, the leading caregiver engagement platform for home care companies. And I'm joined today by Christina Chartrand of Senior Helpers. Christina, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you, David. Good to be here.
So for people who are not familiar with you, how would you introduce yourself?
Well, I am the Senior Vice President of Training and Staff Development for Senior Helpers. I've been with the company for 19 years. I will say that before that, I was in the education business. So I actually worked with children. I kicked off my career teaching kindergarten, worked for several different educational companies after that, but then kind of fell into my lap with Senior Helpers and haven't turned back.
That's great. One of the things that I think is unique about Senior Helpers as a brand is you guys have a lot of training that you've invested in, but it's definitely never like knowledge for knowledge's sake. It is always obviously informs the business and the services, but I think you guys also do a great job of branding those kind of training opportunities and making them like a piece of the marketing and a differentiator when you're in the local communities.
Yeah, we really pride ourselves on some of the different types of programs and services that we offer. And it's a wide variety of them. And I even think some of our frenemies go, "Oh, what did they come up with now?" We have a return home program, which is a transitional care program. We have Senior Gems, where we partnered with Positive Approach to Care with Tipa Snow. She's always fun to hang out with. We have another program called Flex Home, which doesn't provide any minimum hours and minimum days, which is a real win for a lot of families. We have our Center of Excellence, which is our training platform, training program. I always have to bring up Life Profile. It's a proprietary tool that we use to assess our clients. It is 20 years of research behind it, and it actually can predict hospitalization within 6 months. So we are really proud to be able to use that and share that with families across the country.
Yeah, that is such an important tool. And, I think, you guys have been working on this for a long time, but as the kind of conversation around what is the place of home care in the healthcare continuum, we are doing a lot more at home than we ever have. And I'm banging the hospital at home gong as often as possible because home care has been the sitters and personal attendants and that kind of non-medical role for a long time. And while our caregivers are not licensed or trained as like RNs or LPNs or anything, they are super important parts of the healthcare continuum. And it's great that you guys have some diagnostic tools or some predictive tools that also help to identify risk factors and reduce hospitalizations, which is the kind of things Home Health Partners and post-acute and rehab and all those facilities that get Medicare dollars based on outcomes. That's what they love to hear.
It's been interesting to watch that, just even the amount of time that I've been with Senior Helpers, that I would say 10 years ago, we weren't sitting at the table with the post-acute care providers, but now we are. And now payer sources, different types of payer sources are beginning to see us and see the value of having a low cost option to help seniors stay independent in their home environment.
Yeah, that's great. So I want to transition to a different part of this show where I ask you, what kind of person are you? And you have a previous career that is fascinating to me. So tell me about that.
Yeah, I've had several different jobs, but the highlight I want to share is I was a professional puppeteer for 5 years.
And puppeteer is like hand inside of the sock, making the mouth move and stuff.
Yeah, so actually the puppets that we were using, and that is very true, but the puppets we were using were based on bunraku. It's a Japanese style puppetry where the puppet is very large. The feet would think about like on a desk.
Uh-huh.
So the feet would be on the desk and the body would be up this way, and my hands would be up here
Yep.
talking. And yeah, we traveled all over the country presenting educational programs to young people. And then actually, I traveled around the world as well. I traveled different parts of the country and represented different types of medical conditions. And it's a fascinating experience.
So I think many of our listeners will, not the same as, but similar to clowns, might be terrified of puppets. And so, what would you say to the listeners who hear that you were a puppeteer and just be afraid?
Well, I was terrified. I am still terrified of clowns, but
Mm,
these puppets are not.
okay.
Just think of Sesame Street. How can you be
Sure.
terrified of Ernie,
Yeah.
right? You can't be terrified of the Snuffleupagus. So they're too cute. And so ours were cute as well.
Okay. Very good. Well, Christina, thanks for coming on the show. You're here because you've got a pretty serious resume as it relates to um, pushing the standards of care forward, providing amazing training opportunities for all the franchisees that you
Yeah.
work with. But we're not here
Mhm.
to talk about any of that. Instead, people on this
Mhm.
show talk about the big mistake that they've made and how that changed the way that they think about business. And so, what's your big mistake?
Oh, I have a big one. So my big mistake was I was training our new franchise owners all about senior helpers and how to run a home care business. And I trained it in a way that made it sound
Sure.
fabulous. I mean, just glorified everything about it, from hiring and supporting caregivers to going out and caring for all of our clients to running the day-to-day operations, which was basically like 9 to
Yeah.
5
Yeah.
job. Yeah, I did it once, and that franchise class, I went because I was also supporting them at the time as well, so went out and did an ops call, and they're all like, "What? You said this? You said that it was 9 to 5 and I'm up in the middle of the night and I'm caring for clients and I have caregivers who don't show up?" And I was like, so, David, I really changed after that. My training is I roll up the sleeve, they're sitting down and I tell them how it is.
Yeah.
And it is much better way to approach and give them the realistic piece of what it really feels like on a day to day. And so they can expect it versus giving them a sugar coated look.
Makes sense. I talk to owners who are 5, 10, 12, 15 years into the business, and
Hmm.
they're at a scale where the roller coaster ride of client acquisition, caregiver acquisition, client retention, caregiver
Hmm.
retention, you feel like you're playing like Pong or something, trying to keep up.
Hmm.
Um, but they've gotten to a scale where that kind of roller coaster has gotten much less turbulent. The highs aren't as high, the lows aren't as low. They're able
Exactly.
to scale and grow. But what is that kind of journey like? I imagine a lot of our listeners are newer in the business, and so
Hmm.
sometimes I think a sanity check of like, "Hey, I feel like this is on fire. Is that normal?" Could be
Yeah.
useful.
It's so normal. I really say it's not just in franchising, it's any home care company, it's any business that you
Yeah,
start. I've been doing this for a while. Your first 2 to 3 years, you are rolling up your sleeve and doing what you got to do to get it going. And it's hard work. It's really hard work. But when you do talk to those home care um, owners that have been doing this, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, they've built such a solid team around
yeah,
them that they do have a buffer from that, and it runs more like a well-oiled machine. But at first, it's very jarring at first because you gain a client, you lose a client, you get 2 clients, you lose 3 clients, and it's this back and forth, this ebb and flow that you're constantly keeping up with. And I'll say is, you know what? You work just as hard in assigning and a new client that's 3 hours a week as you would with somebody who's 60 hours a
yeah,
week. You work it's actually sometimes I think the lower hours are harder
sure,
just to make sure that you've got a caregiver who really wants to work
right,
the lower number of
yeah,
hours.
totally. Do you have conversations frequently with franchisees that are like, they're a year and a half into the business and they're like, "Hey, I don't know if this is working or not."
Oh, I've had phone calls with them where you're just, yeah, trying pulling them back from jumping.
Sure.
saying, I don't want to do this. I want to sell my business. And I really say, I'm like, listen, let's evaluate where you
Yeah.
are, right? Let's look at where you are. Let's look at where your biggest pain points are, and let's see what we can do to be able to help that out. And it may be something like evenings and weekends
Yeah.
where you need an on-call caregiver, right? You need that person to be able to come in and you be able to call one person because it's Sunday and you're with your family and you're on a boat, and then you get a call that a caregiver won't show up. So maybe it's an on call. Maybe you put that in place, and that will help relieve some of that stress that you're having. So it's just finding those little stress points and finding
Yeah.
solutions.
It feels to me like you're going to have your work-life balance kind of thrown through a wood chipper in the
Mhm.
first few years. But like,
Mhm.
I love that example of you're on a boat and all of a sudden you get a call and you have to deal with it. It feels like if I was a home care owner, and I'm not because I'm not crazy.
Mm.
That's a joke. I
No,
am
I know.
crazy. But it feels like you've got to have almost these non-negotiables of like, okay, I'm gonna have to sacrifice evenings. I'm gonna be on call. Saturdays, who knows what's gonna happen. But Sunday afternoon, when the weather is nice, we are gonna find a way that I'm still able to be like a regular person and not just a
Yeah.
full-time business owner slash full-time
Yeah.
employee.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that that is an important piece of it. I also find, one of the things that I find is very interesting, and I do ask this when we're looking at potential people or looking to to buy the
Yep.
business, is do you like people?
Mm,
And if you're one of those people like, oh, this is not the right business, or you need to back off and do some of just like the basic stuff. This is a forward thinking, forward person business with all kinds of people. You're talking with people who are, in the healthcare that are in your
yeah.
community. You've got clients, you've got client family members, you've got caregivers, you've got staff, and you've got to be pretty decent with people. And if you're not, you've got to find somebody to put in the
Yeah.
front to deal with people.
Yeah.
Well, we were talking about, just how hard it
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
be in the first,
Perfect.
but we were talking about, all the things in the first 2 years, how hard, but I also feel like you've also got to write down the positive and the joys and the things and how powerful your business is in helping other
Yeah.
people. And you've got to throw those reminders. It's like almost like if you wake up and if you're one of these people that have gratitude, you wake up in the morning, I'm grateful for whatever. Find something to feel like you're grateful for. And it does help out. It really helps you realize how important this business is for the
Yeah.
community.
You read my mind exactly. Because I was going to ask you the question, which is I talk to owners who've been in the business for a while and they've been burned by
Mm-hmm.
more caregivers and more clients than they can count.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's one of the things that as operators in this space, people have to confront is how do you not be like totally naive and let people take advantage of you, but how do you keep showing up doing such important work knowing that there's all these times where things don't go well and people don't bring them their best version of themselves to you. How do you prevent yourself from just becoming really cynical and kind of jaded by all the people components of this thing?
I talk about that a lot in training because I feel like it's really easy to get cynical and it's easy to trickle down that to your staff because once you
Mm,
do, then everybody is. And everyone gets an attitude. And I think what you've got to do is understand that people are people and our lives may not be the same as the caregivers that are caring for our clients. Their lives might be a little different than your life. And so I feel like it's trying to be respectful of all the different types of people that you're working with. And you can have empathy,
yep.
right? Put yourself in their shoes once in a while. And I think that helps. But I have to always say the leader needs to constantly portray it's a positive attitude. You can run into a closet and scream or go
Yep.
into your car and be like, I can't believe this is happening. But you've got to go back in there because that all trickles down. And you know what? You could hear it when somebody picks up the
Yeah.
phone.
Yeah. And I think as soon as that kind of negativity gets into the office, it is so hard to dial that back.
It
And it
is.
just seeps into all the conversations that people have. And your client interactions are probably safer than your caregiver interactions.
They are.
But
It still doesn't
yeah.
matter. Every phone call, every communication should be just as respectful.
Yep. I totally agree. Well, I want to move next to talking about something that is underrated in the industry. It's something that's totally overlooked, and it's actually really important.
Okay, let's go. The thing that makes me frustrated in this business is the way that home care is portrayed and how it's portrayed, for example, in commercials, in pictures, in our minds of this frail senior sitting by themselves, all alone. The pictures have like hand over hand. They can't take care of themselves. They have no words. They have no say in what they're doing. And it's just not true. It's like, an example, my mom receives home care services and she's 86 years old and she speaks her
Yeah,
mind. She has something to say and her life has been very interesting. And I just feel like, one of the things we do here at Senior Helpers is that slowly some of our offices are being certified in age-friendly care, which is it's another topic to
sure.
have, but it's a movement that's really going across the country. And it's really showing about the importance of really truly taking care of the person versus the ideal of the
Mm,
person, the ideal of the senior. And one of the questions that we like to ask when we think about this is we ask the question during the assessment, what matters most to you?
mm,
And because it's not just about us and about the family, but we really want to find out, what do you want? What's most important to you? And so if anything, I would say is that, the industry really needs to reflect the people who need just a little bit of help around the house, a trip to the grocery store, a help with laundry and a few things, not just like, oh, someone is with a walker and a wheelchair. There needs to be more interaction and we need to focus not just on all the care needs, but to building a really true relationship with that person and talk about quality of life and talk about being purposeful. As you can see, I get very heated about
yeah.
it.
I think I'm going to call myself out a little bit for this because one of the things that we do within our product is when people receive gift cards or when they redeem the points they've earned for gift cards, we
Yeah.
ask in that moment, like a question like, when's the last time teamwork made a big difference? Or tell us about a heartwarming interaction you had with your client. And we run that stuff through AI to make sure that it's not like
Hmm.
negative or spam or whatever. And then we post that in the social feed for other caregivers to see and create some of that positive culture. And I saw one today from a client of ours, and it was, what's the most heartwarming interaction you've had with a client recently? And she said, my client made me my favorite pie from scratch, a lemon meringue, and we sat outside and enjoyed some time together. And it's like, I saw that and I was like, wait, your client can make, it was just that knee-jerk reaction of these
Right.
old frail people who need help with everything. But instead, like, this is I think, like, kind of the ideal of home care, which is like, why do caregivers come to work, is for those kinds of opportunities where you get to
Exactly.
share life with a person. You don't just get to be this like caretaker who's responsible for all their needs.
It's so different. It's almost like it's a training piece, honestly, that we do with caregivers, especially caregivers who have worked in facilities like skilled
Sure. Yeah.
nursing and assisted living. They've had, ratio 1 to 10, and their goal is to get as many showers done in an hour's time.
Yeah.
And we come to home care and I'm like, slow
Yeah.
down. If they don't want to shower until after breakfast, or they don't want to shower until around lunchtime, and they want to sit in their bed with under a blanket with a cup of coffee and watch the Today Show, they
Yeah.
can, right? Like, you help them go to that caregiver. This is about the
Yeah.
client, right? And we're slowing down that process. And the most important part, I really find, caregiver and client, what really makes it work, the relationship work, is the
Yeah.
companionship. And nobody pays for companionship, right? No one's going to pay $35 an hour for
Yeah.
companionship, but it truly is the glue of the relationship working. And when I asked my mom how, so did Elaine get the groceries? Did you get groceries? Did you do laundry? And she'll say, we had such a great time together today. And I'm going, that's what it's
Yeah.
about.
Um, I think one of the things, obviously, there's some things that we can change with our approach throughout the client journey, with our approach with our caregivers as we're training them. But I think one of the things that drives some of that sense of helplessness, it can be the family perceptions and interactions of how mom's doing. And I think it's this really hard kind of pendulum swing that families go through of mom's fine, mom's fine, mom's fine. Oh, mom is not fine. And then instead of going, okay, let's be reasonable about this. Mom needs help with this and this, but this other stuff she's doing a really good job with. And so how do you and the folks that you work with kind of reset those expectations for the client family members?
Well, I always say go in with low expectation first. If you go in and say, we have the best caregivers and this is going to be the best experience for you, you are setting the bar way too high. Yeah. I really believe go in with a lower expectation and say, you know what, it may take a few weeks, a month to kind of get things worked out, to make sure that we have the right caregivers in place, that we're doing the right things, offering the right things. It's not just about one time. And so what I feel like is that if home care providers, what really makes it successful is that you've got to check in, especially during that first month, check in on a weekly basis and make sure that we're meeting the family's expectation. What are the things they want us to do? One of the things that the client wants them to do, and check in with the caregiver and see how they're feeling about it. Because they actually may say, you know, we need to add this to the care plan because they're having difficulty doing their own laundry. They said they do laundry, but they're really having a hard time bending over or being able to carry the basket back or whatever that is, whatever those pieces. I think that helps. And I think the other piece of it is that it's hard to talk about the importance of purpose and quality of life during the actual assessment because the family is so focused on the care need, like what you need to do to help mom. But then you go back and that's when you begin to talk about it. We actually have a quality of life planner at Senior Helpers, and it's meant for them to pick out things that they enjoy doing so that the caregiver can see some of the things that they maybe used to do and are not doing now. So we can weave some of that within their day to day. And that's the stuff that people remember. That's the stuff that the family remembers. You know, it's not that they helped mom with the shower. It's more of, they, went to the dollar store because mom loved the dollar store and she hasn't been able to go, but now she's got a transport chair and she can go up and down the aisles of the dollar store. That's the stuff.
Well, and I think like this goes kind of will foreshadow the stuff we're going to talk about next, which is you've got to have the bandwidth in your business to be able to create those kinds of moments because your bill rate is exactly the same, whether you do your ADLs and that's it, or whether you do the above and beyond stuff and go to the dollar store or like bake and take stuff around the neighborhood or whatever. But in terms of like your mission and your impact, that's obviously there, but also like the quality of referral and word of mouth and Google reviews, like the marketing impact of those kinds of stories is so significant.
Really is. And it's helpful to track it and to put, to really, I would say that all home care providers really need to have some way of surveying how things are going, and not just with your client, but with your caregivers as well, and addressing immediately.
Yeah. This goes back to my caregivers are the secret sauce here. I mean, and I think everybody knows that. I'm not saying anything that's revolutionary, but if we empower our caregivers to know that their opinion matters and they can see stuff that nobody else will because they're the closest to the client, that helps with all the like reducing hospitalization stuff we talked about up at the top of the show, but that also helps so much with identifying which of your clients could make for a great testimonial, or we need to ask for a Google review right now. And having that feedback loop with caregivers is so essential.
Yeah. I always say, if you feel like if you were the last to know that your client is moving from home care to an assisted living, I say shame on you. It's because that caregiver has been packing that client for months to get her ready for assisted living. So we don't want to put our caregivers on an island. They're not out there by themselves. This is not a remote employee. You got to have connections to them on a regular basis in order for them to feel a part of the senior helpers or your home care organization. And that's through support, rewards, incentives, surveys, anything that you're going to be able to do, and stop by and visit so they feel a part of it.
Okay, I want to transition. We talked about a big mistake that you made, but I want to hear about a little mistake that you see home care owners make all the time. And if they stopped, it'd make their lives or their businesses like 10 times better.
Yeah. One of the big ones I see is the lack of delegation, that they hire staff members, schedulers, they hire someone who's client facing, caregiver facing, recruiter, but they can't let go. And they getting involved in every tiny little thing. And that gets exhausting.
Mm,
And it also stifles the growth of your business. And so I feel like if you feel like you've got the right staff member in place and you've done your homework and training them and getting them where they need to be, you got to let your baby birds fly and allow them to make a little mistake here and there. It's the only way that people are going to learn so that you can back off and you can think strategically about the growth of your business versus being in that day to day.
yeah. Is there a, you don't have to tell me who they are, where they live or anything, but is there a particular owner that you saw kind of a breakthrough as it relates to delegation for?
Yeah, I remember I can think of a owner who had a very difficult time with this because they really love the business. These are people who do love people and they love the business, but the business wasn't growing. And it wasn't growing is because they were playing a role. They were caregiving. They were going
Mm,
out and doing, they were scheduling, they were working weekends. And it finally was like, you got to back off, just try it. Give it 3 months and allow your team to do the job and see what happens because sometimes you actually are not the right person
yeah.
to be in there because you're actually stifling the growth because you're not the right person. You're not your focus when they step back and you give them 3 months of looking at, oh, these are the KPIs I need to be paying attention to. I'm not focused on hiring enough caregivers and I've got leads coming in. I'm not able to fulfill these shifts. Like it's stepping back and really seeing that big picture. And once you do, you can really look at it's basic in running this business. It's hard.
Right.
Believe me, I
Yeah.
know it's hard. But there are basics in running it. And if you can focus on caregivers, clients, and operations and kind of look at these things and these leads as they come in, you will grow much faster.
Yeah. I think one of the challenges of being able to delegate and kind of relinquish control is that transition from when you are in the day to day and you have your finger on the pulse because you're doing it all.
Yeah.
And then taking a step back, but retaining that kind of visibility and connectedness to the business. And so, from your perspective, what are the metrics that are most important, but maybe sometimes get a little bit overlooked?
Yeah, I think once you do look back, but you also train your staff on understanding the right KPIs and putting SMART goals in
Yeah.
place, I think that's when they feel empowered as well because you're giving them a goal to think
Mm,
about. So, within home care, it really is the basics, right? It's really looking at the number of leads that are coming in and looking at the conversion rate from leads to service calls. We know that referral leads are going to be better than lead gen, but they're both still leads. And are you working your lead gen? Are you taking your digital leads and are you doing follow up? Because success in those is doing that follow up. And then the other piece is obviously looking the number of caregivers. Are you recruiting the correct number to bring in through the interviewing and the
yeah.
onboarding orientation process? You don't want to have too many people sitting on the
Yep.
bench. At the very beginning, you're going
Yep.
to, but you want to be able to provide them an opportunity to start to work right after your orientation. So you've got to really, that's a big piece in managing those numbers. And then both is retention of caregivers, retention of clients. You've got to keep constantly evaluating in the why factor. Why are they leaving?
Yeah.
Am I not providing them the caregiver, you know, I'm not getting in front of them before they're on their phones looking for a different company to work
Yeah.
for. You want to get in front of them. If you see a client who's going to be leaving or it's not working out, you want to get in front of them and say, okay, let's look at the next, let's find you a new caregiver. Tell me a little bit of what you're looking for. And I look at it with clients too. You've got to look at the retention
Yeah.
rate of them. Why are we losing them?
Yeah.
You know, so understanding those, having those KPIs in place, there's a few more obviously that we can look at, but those are some basics that if you're in the business constantly, you're not evaluating. You as an owner, you need to be looking at those numbers on a regular
Yeah.
basis.
Well, and I think like having those KPI oriented conversations with your staff members gives you the ability to trust that actually like they know what is going on in their
Yes.
department and they are holding themselves accountable to number of leads at the top of the funnel from a recruiting perspective to how many interviews did we get? How many of those people made it to orientation? When they own the funnel and can demonstrate that they own the funnel, then like, you can take your hands off of the thing quite such a
Exactly.
stranglehold.
Exactly.
Well, let's talk about, we talked about a lot of different mistakes that were made, and there were a couple, but I want to hear now about something that's happened lately in the business that you're really proud of.
So one of the things at Senior Helpers that we are super proud of is, I was talking briefly about it before, is we are now certified in age-friendly care through CHAP, and we're actually the first home care company in the country that have been home care companies been certified. Very interesting. We're beginning to see that hospital systems are asked to now be certified in age-friendly care, and we're so excited to be a part of this and to be able to talk about it in our communities. We actually have a conference coming up in September. And so our plan is to make a big splash about the importance of, providing this age-friendly care, and it's big for us. So we give ourselves a little pat on the back on that one.
Yeah, that's exciting. Give me, as somebody who knows nothing about age-friendly care, what's the elevator pitch for what it is and why it's important?
So it really evaluates a variety of different things. It looks at, one of the questions that I was sharing with you is what matters most. So we want to always be asking that question, but it also takes a look at the importance of medications and understanding them. What medications are they on? Are they the right medications? Are they taking them correctly? A lot of times we'll go in and do an assessment, and we're also just asking, what is, maybe what medications you're on, and, what chronic disease do you have? But we're not asking questions such as, do you know the parameters that these medications should be in? Do you know what symptoms and signs that you should be looking for? We also evaluate dementia or any cognitive impairment. Like, what are we doing with our Senior Gems program? We're really to be able to put a lot of strategies in place to be able to support our seniors. So it's really, the movement is really kind of changing from just, you go in, talk to your doctor for 10 minutes and that's it, and they just talk about what your diseases are. We're really talking about the person and what their experience is. And I feel like it's a really positive thing for home care.
Yeah, that's exciting. Well, before we get out of here, what do you want to plug?
What do I want to plug? Well, I have to plug, one of the things I like to plug is what we call here at Senior Helpers is our Center of Excellence. So our Center of Excellence, all home care companies and really all healthcare companies have a training space with a lot of durable medical equipment. We all have it. We have the wheelchair, the Hoyer lift, the hospital bed, the wheelchair and every whole thing, gait belts. And you want to get your care workers to get in there and practice their skills so they're really able to support seniors. And we got all that. But what we've done with Center of Excellence, we've created a space that looks like where our seniors live. And so they're like mini apartments that they've created. And so they have everything from the Afghan rug to a real bed, not a hospital bed, because most of our clients are in real beds. And it's got a lot of the clutter and the bedside table with the medicines that shouldn't be on it. So what we like to do is put a lot of risk in there so that the caregiver can go in, identify all the different potential risks, fall risks that you would see. We've got pictures, and we've got the floral sofa with the plastic cover on it. We got all of it.
What's the greatest number of rugs you've seen stacked on top each other in somebody's Center of Excellence?
Oh my gosh. Well, I could even look at where my mother did. So she has wall-to-wall carpet, and then she threw another rug on top of it. And then she had stuff on top of that. I mean, I was tripping over it. The problem is that we walk into these trip hazards. And so we want to create as many trip hazards as possible for our caregivers to identify.
Oh, that's great. Well, Christina, this has been really fun. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you, David. It's been great.
On behalf of the team here at Zingage, thanks for listening to the show. We'll be back next week with another episode, so be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, on Spotify or Apple or YouTube. Leave us a rating while you're there. It helps other people find the show. If you have comments on the show, drop me a line, david@zingage.com. Would love to hear from you, chat with you there.